This is Aaron Sang with Private Lending, and today I'm going to show you how to use our Deal Analyzer calculator to figure out your profitability on your flips and better manage your numbers. So really quickly, this is the setup. It's an Excel sheet. If you don't have it, you can reach out to me and I'll send it to you. This is a free tool that we've made to work with our clients to help them better analyze their deals and know what they're getting into as they go into their flips. So this is the first page. It's just a little disclaimer just saying that this is a private lending document. You're welcome to use it, but we just ask that you reach out to us if you want to distribute it. The main thing you're going to do, so you're going to start with your construction budget. So that's the next tab here. And so there's a few things with this construction budget features to note. So one here that's easy to miss is you can enter the total square footage, right? So let's say you're looking at buying a house and you want to do the numbers on your flip, right? So let's say you're buying call it a 3-2, 1,500 square feet. You can enter the square footage above here. The reason that's going to be helpful is it's going to calculate your cost for construction for the renovation. But not only is it going to calculate your total cost, but you can also see your cost per square foot. That's important to note. A lot of times when you sell homes, one of the ways you can calculate what your comps are going to be is your cost per square footage, and also your renovation cost per square footage are generally an indicator of how big of a project you're getting into. This is also good because you can save. If you save the template file, you could open a new file and copy it for each one of your deals. What this is going to allow you to do is basically record your numbers. So you're going to be able to go back at previous deals, see your numbers, see how you worked out, and compare when you go to future flips. So that's going to be helpful. So then all you're going to do is you can fill out this construction budget. This is really helpful a lot of times because it'll help you think through your flip before you even get into it, right? So you have exterior. We divided exterior, interior, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and other. You can really configure these however you want. So if you want to add a column here, you could insert a column and add a new category. You could change any one of these categories. That's totally fine. This is just how we built it up. So let's do kind of a sample deal here. So let's do it really simply. Let's say you're buying a 3-2, 1,500 square feet, and it probably doesn't need a lot of work on this one. Let's say you buy like a 40-year-old brick ranch or something. And so let's say it needs a new roof, and you say, okay, you can divide it between labor and materials as well. I'm just going to put everything today in the material column, but if you want to separate between labor and materials, we have that broken out for you. So let's say you're just going to put a new roof on. You think that's going to be $8,000. And maybe you're going to do a little bit of landscaping, call it 1,500, get it nice and neat before you list it and sell it. And then you go down here to your interior. Let's say, usually when you're flipping, you usually redo the kitchen and the bathroom. So let's call it maybe 7,500 for the kitchen. You're going to redo the 2 bathrooms, call it $2,000 each, put $4,000 into that. Maybe you budget $1,000 for demolition. Let's say drywall and everything is good, but you are going to paint. Say you're going to pay $4,000 to paint. You could put some new appliances in, call it $2,500. Maybe $1,000 for some lighting fixtures, get it looking really nice on the inside. And then you're going to move down to mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Maybe on this one, let's say everything looks good, HVAC, electrical, that all looks good, but maybe you're going to put a new water heater in. Let's call it $1,500. From there, permits and inspections. We don't usually reimburse for legal fees or something like that, but if it's legitimate, you getting your electrical inspected or something like that, you can put that in here. With this being largely cosmetic, you may not have a lot of inspection costs on this one. We've got pest, termite, mold remediation, staging, cleaning, final touches, dumpster hauling. Maybe you bought it as is and there's a lot of stuff left in there. You're going to rent some dumpsters out. So call it $1,000 there. So then you can look at this construction budget and look at the breakdown. So what do you see is you have $95 budgeted on the exterior, or $6 a square foot. and it's going to be about 30% of your total cost for renovation. The interior ends up coming out to $20,000, $13 a square foot, 62% of your budget. Then you have a couple things on the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and other. Your budget ends up being $32,000, and it's $21 a square foot. So this is going to be a lighter cosmetic rehab. Another thing we'll usually allow a little bit of a contingency budget if the numbers work right for you. So let's say on this one you want to add a little bit of a budget. We usually do 5 to 10%. So let's call it, you put a $2,000 contingency budget here. The reason we do that is because usually things come out on the flip or the renovation that you weren't expecting. We reimburse for completed work. So we'll actually go in here and the way you do a draw, you can see our video on draws, but you'll send us a video and show us the work that's completed. And let's say you run into something that is not in one of these categories, or you have some cost overruns, you can actually request that would come out of your contingency budget. So all in all, you have an all-in renovation budget of $34,000. It's $22.67 a square foot. And this is where it gets a little bit fun. Those numbers are now actually going to pull through onto your renovation costs here. So you can see here, we have a flipper calculator on the next screen. So not only can you figure out your construction costs, but you can actually use those costs to then build out your deal and see what your profit's going to be. So let's say maybe you're buying this for $125,000 and you think you can list it for $240 at the end, and you think it'll reasonably sell for $240. You think this is probably a 6-month project. What you can do is you can run through here and it'll tell you all of your costs using some assumptions. And so you can reasonably predict around what your profit will be if your assumptions are correct. And so we'll run through this. So first we have the purchase price. So you can put in the purchase price, that's $125. And you can put in the tax assessed value as well. The reason we have this as an option is because we want to try to calculate for what your real estate taxes will be. Our goal here is to try to help you account for every penny you are going to spend on your flip, so that you know your true number. Because a lot of times it's easy to say, okay, I'm going to buy it for $125. I'm going to put $34 into it. I'll sell it for $240. And that's my profit, right? But as every flipper knows, there's a lot of extra costs that go into that. And you want to account for that before you buy the deal. You want to make sure you price it right. So let's say the tax assessment is, just call it $150. You're buying it slightly below tax assessment. And then you have an estimated completion time of 6 months. And let's say you're going to get a loan for 80% of the purchase price as well as 100% of the renovation budget. This is a somewhat typical loan for us. A lot of times we'll do 70 to 80% of the purchase price of the house when you buy it, but we'll also fund 100% of the renovations as well. And so then this is where you can get into the other costs and the assumptions, right? So one thing we do here is there's a little financing calculator. As we're a hard money lender, we've kind of calibrated along how we typically do, a lot of our deals. So what it does is it calculates how much you're actually borrowing. So you're borrowing 80% of the purchase. You're also borrowing the $34,000 for the renovation. So this is assuming you're getting a $134,000 loan. You have your origination fees, your interest rate, and the amount of time that you're doing it, which is linked to what you put here. So if you change this to 9 months, it will adjust your total financing costs. What we want to help you figure out is how much are you going to pay if this project runs the whole length of time for the loan, right? So we want to help you accurately figure that out. So on this one, using these assumptions, if you sell it and pay off the loan in 6 months, your total financing costs, not just with the interest, but with your fees and everything, are going to be $14,070. And so that actually goes right here into your financing costs. You also have your insurance carry cost. We did that. It's just like a kind of a boilerplate assumption where I'm assuming that your annual insurance cost is going to be, 0.5% of your ARV. You can adjust that as you want to whatever you start seeing. That's just a kind of a default setting I've got there. I've also got the same thing for utilities, because while you're working on the project, you're going to have power and you might have water running at this property. So you're going to have some utilities. And then we also have property taxes. So $122 per $1,000. We do a lot of work in Roanoke, Virginia. So I use their tax rate to come up with the property taxes. So then you can adjust these assumptions, but if you use the default, it's already got these numbers in there. Then the next line is seller closing costs, right? So this is, hey, you go to sell it and they get an inspection and they say, hey, you got to put up a handrail here, you got to cut down a tree there, yada, yada, right? So you might do some work before you close it to get that to close. I've got 2% for seller closing costs. Maybe you pay an attorney, miscellaneous expenses. Now, this is something you can adjust down if you want. This is maybe a little bit conservative, but I've got 2% of the home's selling price as closing costs. We like to be conservative when we help people pencil out their deals. I always like it when they make more money than they think they are going to, than the inverse where you come in optimistically and maybe you don't make as much as you want. Then the last item here is realtor commissions. So typically, the structure has typically been 3% on each side, but you can adjust that down too. Now with the new laws, I've seen people negotiating sometimes those realtor commissions, and then sometimes people are listing themselves. So let's say in this case, maybe they negotiate 2.5% to the buyer's realtor and 2.5% to the seller's realtor. So you adjust that down to 5%. That's going to immediately be reflected there. And then lastly, I've got contingency here. Because we already have contingency in the budget, you could probably adjust that down. But right now I've got another contingency budget there. We can say, hey, we already put contingency in the construction budget, so we're not going to account for it here. And then there you go. You've got all your costs. So in this scenario, you buy for $125,000 and you do a $34,000 renovation project and you sell it in 6 months for $240,000. Well, in that case, it's telling you that your total costs, the purchase, the renovation, the financing, the utilities, the insurance, the realtor commissions, every penny accounted for is going to be $196,065. And that will leave you with a total profit of $43,000. So just a little quick rule of thumb, maybe if you're new to flipping, one rule of thumb that I have personally is I feel like when I'm advising someone on their flip, I always want to make sure that they're going to make more money than we're going to make financing it. So that is a good rule of thumb. So you see this is lit up green. You see you have financing costs of $14,000. So you're paying $14,000 for the money. And if everything goes well, you're going to make $43,000 in profit. That's going to be for most folks, that's going to be a pretty good flip. It depends what you're looking for. I know folks who want to make 20 grand on a flip and do a bunch of them. I know some folks that like to do less flips, but get their numbers really good and have a higher profit. But either way, generally $43,000 on a 6-month flip with a $34,000 rehab is going to be pretty good. And then the last thing that I want to point out here is this line right here, estimated pre-tax cash on cash return annualized. And what that is another way to look at your flips is not just how much profit you're going to make, but how much are you going to make on your money, right? So you're going to have a little bit of a down payment. You have some closing costs. You have maybe, call it $34,000 of cash in the deal with the down payment and the closing costs. Well, you want to make sure that that money is going to get a really good return on, that capital that's being deployed. So what we see here is that $43,000 in profit in 6 months, if you annualize it out to a year, you're actually going to get a 194% return on your deployed capital. And that's really strong. And so one of the things that affects this, of course, is how much money you're bringing down. Another thing that affects it is obviously your costs as well, your profitability. But one thing that a lot of people don't always pay attention to is how big of a factor time takes here. So let's look at this. Let's imagine you take a year to do this flip, right? Instead of 6 months. So we'll change this to 12. And you can see the huge impact that has on your cash on cash return. Even though your profitability only goes down from 43 to 33,000, because you took that extra time, over in a year's time frame, your cash on cash return drops precipitously. So the lesson there is speed. Not only does speed win deals, but speed also helps profitability. On the flip side, let's look at, and this is why finishing your flips early is such a win when you can make it happen. Let's say you're able to get the renovation done in call it 2 months, and you're able to price it to sell and get it moved quickly, and maybe you pay off the loan and get the thing sold in 4 months. Let's look at the difference here. It goes from $43,000 to $47,000, which doesn't seem like a huge impact on your profit, but in terms of your cash on cash return, it jumps to 342%. Why is that? Well, now instead of being able to do 2 deals a year with that tranche of money, you're actually able to do 3 deals in a year, and you also have slightly lower costs because your insurance, your utilities, your property taxes, they're all a little bit lower. But most importantly, your financing costs drop as well. Because we don't charge a prepayment penalty, you're, instead of paying $14,000 for your financing, now you're only paying $11,000. And so not only do you have less costs, you have a little bit more profit, but your speed of capital, your velocity of capital, means that your cash on cash return jumps very significantly. So that's how we like to analyze deals, and we've built this tool for folks who like to see what they're getting into before they do it. We hope this helps, and if you don't have this calculator or you don't have this tool, feel free to reach out. My email is here. It's aaron.sang@privatelending.llc, or you could give me a call. You can look us up online and give me a call. We're pretty easy to reach. But that's all we have for you today. We hope that this is helpful, and good luck flipping, guys. Take care.